What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Monday edition of the Uprise podcast. Now, I didn't stream yesterday. I've taken a couple days off. Things have been kind of rough as far as the Portland Trailblazers lately. Me and Eric are going to get into it as we always do. We'll provide that deep, hard-hitting analysis, and we'll talk about what the Blazers do from here, because they're at a bit of a crossroads, and I don't know, man. We haven't really planned out this podcast. We're just going to basically freestyle this thing. We honestly freestyle a lot of our podcasts, and I still think they turn out pretty well. So it's nice to be back with you guys again, because we didn't do a Friday podcast. Do we have a game Friday?
Well, you did like a 45-minute one.
Yeah, I did a short live stream. Yeah, you're right.
That was your rant about
Did you like that rant? Yeah, the hood injury.
Yeah.
Was that rant spot on, you think?
It was pretty good. We'll get into it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that was a different type of podcast. I had to finish homework and stuff up, so I didn't really get to chill with you guys. So I haven't gotten to just like chill and relax with you guys on stream since Wednesday. So it's been a little while. Feels like forever. So it's nice to be back in here again. We're going to start off with what we always do, and that is picks against the spread.
All right.
And we're going to exclude games that started at like 4 or 4:30. Games that started at 5 are fine. It's 5 or 7. So
yeah,
those games are just tipping off. But we're probably going to start excluding the games that have already started if we end up starting podcasts late. Because I want to get these podcasts a little bit earlier, going up by like 3, starting by 3:30, 3 to 4, sometime in there. My hours just kind of suck right now, I'll be honest. So that's why we start late. But yeah, so we're going to do picks against the spread, not including games that have already started. That's what we're going to do from here on out. How many games do we have when we exclude those games?
Well, we took out 2, so there are 7 left.
Okay, yeah, we still got 7 games, So that's good. So we'll start off. Eric will read me the spread. And we'll pick. Chat, you pick as always.
Chat, you guys were 7-3 and are now just a game behind 500 at 39-40. So keep it up. You guys are heading in the right direction. Tori was fired last Wednesday, 9-1 on his picks to move up to 50-43 for the year. And I was 6-4, so another above 500, but I fell a couple games behind Tori with his blistering performance. So I'm at 48-45. So.
I'm mad I didn't go 10-0, man.
I know.
I think the Heat let me down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
damn, man, I should have went 10-0.
Like we talked about, if you had your way, you would have had Atlanta after you said you picked them, and then.
True. Yeah, that was the whole thing. Yeah, I was completely wrong on that. I made a pick and then I changed my mind and then I forgot that I changed my mind.
Yeah.
So that was funny, but you were right. So I'll give you credit.
Oh,
on
wow.
that.
Hey, you heard it here, first time ever.
I know. You soak it up. You should probably save this podcast afterwards and like save a clip of that and replay it before you go to bed to help you sleep at night.
Yeah. All right. So the first game is Detroit is 1-point favorite in New Orleans tonight.
I'm taking Detroit. New Orleans is trash. Detroit, I think, will start playing better.
That's pretty bad.
That's my logic. That's my logic right there. 1 point is pretty low, I think, and they don't really have a home court advantage too, New Orleans. So
right, except for we lost them in New Orleans. Though Dame didn't play, but okay. Next game, you monitor chat, and I'll go to the next game. Orlando is 12.5-point underdogs in Milwaukee tonight.
12.5 points.
Yeah.
Milwaukee's been blowing every team out, so I'm going to keep going with Milwaukee. They've been winning games by 20 pretty consistently. Chat picked Detroit last game.
Okay.
12.5 is big, especially for a team like Orlando, but I've had good results with picking Milwaukee no matter what the spread, so I'm rolling with the Bucks.
I'm going to take Orlando in this one, not to win, but I think Milwaukee finally has a little bit of a closer game, and they got guys like Aaron Gordon and Jonathan Isaac that can match up somewhat okay with Antetokounmpo.
That's true.
But so I'm hoping I'm not wrong on this one. But yeah, that's a tough one. I could see it going either way.
If they had Vucevic, I'd be taking Orlando.
Right.
But Chat's gonna take the Bucks with me.
All right.
I think Chats are gonna follow my lead since I was 9-1 last time.
It's worked out that time.
Yeah, I'm gonna be 1-9 tonight.
All right, next game is Toronto is 6-point favorites in Chicago.
I'm gonna take Toronto. 6 points is not enough of a spread for that game.
Yeah.
Or did I say Chicago or Toronto?
You,
Here we go again.
you said Toronto.
Toronto. Yeah, I'm gonna take Toronto.
Okay.
Jeez, man, I don't know.
Yeah. I'm going to take Toronto as well. I agree. All right, next game we got Sacramento is in Houston tonight, and Houston is 12-point home favorites.
I'm taking Sacramento. Mello Stay says I'm tripping. I am tripping. I'm going to take Sacramento. 12 points is too much for a Houston team that isn't really playing that well lately. Sacramento has been playing better. I know they don't have De'Aaron Fox or Marvin Bagley, but they've been playing better without those guys, so I'm going to take Sacramento.
I'm going to take Sacramento as well, not necessarily to win, just like the Milwaukee game, just keeping it closer than 12.
Yep. Are you keeping up with the picks, or do you need some picks?
Did they pick
chat?
Toronto or Chicago?
They picked Toronto.
And then Sacramento or Houston?
I see 2 for Houston, I got 3 for Sac. Okay, they're picking Sac.
All right. Next game, Oklahoma City is playing again tonight, back-to-back in Utah, and they're 8.5-point underdogs.
I'm going to take Utah.
Okay.
Utah there. Utah's been struggling, but playing in Utah is tough. The elevation and his second night of a back-to-back. Yeah, I'm going to take Utah there.
I agree with that. And OKC is not good. I cannot believe we lost that game last night, which we'll get into as well.
We'll get into this, man. Yep. Chat's rolling with Utah as well.
All right. And then Minnesota is in Phoenix tonight, and Phoenix is 4.5-point favorites.
Oh, I'm taking Minnesota. Phoenix has been struggling, falling back down to earth where they belong. Minnesota's been struggling a bit too, but I'm taking the Timberwolves.
Yeah, getting points with those two teams. I'll take the team getting the 4.5.
Yeah.
Last game is going to be Memphis is in Golden State, and Golden State is favored by 3 points in this one.
John Morant still isn't back, is he?
I think he's out still for a couple weeks. That's a tough
game to pick. What do you got?
I'm going to take Memphis. When I can't decide, I go with the underdog because it's getting points. So
is D'Angelo Russell playing?
I think he's back. Yeah, playing. Yep.
I'm gonna take the Warriors then.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take the Warriors there. They got the best player on the floor. Worth Mankind says, Tori, you're overconfident, man. Don't be dissing the Suns. We are ass. What I say about the Suns isn't affected by what I think about our team. Those don't relate. I guess Jaw's back for the Grizz. I'm still gonna take the Warriors. Let's just take the Warriors there. Probably gonna get burnt on that one, but Cat's taking Memphis.
What about the game before the Wolves, Suns, Wolves? Okay, Minnesota. Okay, yep. Perfect.
Awesome. So that was an efficient segment.
Real quick, so this guy Eric Klezer, sorry, I'm probably butchering your name. He said, just wanted to say I love your channel. I watch almost all of them, but being stationed in Europe, I rarely watch live. Happened to be up early today. That's cool that you're stationed over there. Thank you for your duties and for watching.
Yeah. Thank you to Eric. We got a lot of Erics that watch this channel that probably like you more than me just because of your name. But yeah, shout out to Eric over in Europe. Where are you in Europe, man? Let me know where you are in Europe. I was actually born in Germany, fun fact. My dad was stationed in Europe when I was born, since my dad was in the U.S. Army. I was born in Schaffenburg, Germany. Born with dual citizenship, though. I'm not. When I was a kid, I would tell people that, and the other kids would call me an immigrant. I'm not an immigrant or anything like that. But I was born over there, which I think is pretty cool. So I could go back there whenever I want. I don't know how dual citizenship affects things for me, but I definitely want to go back there and visit and check out Europe again. Dude, when I was young, man, I went so many cool places, and I can't remember any of them. Like New York City, Boston, toured Europe as a baby. like East Coast road trip. Like I went to so many cool places before like the age of 5 or 6. I can't remember them, and it sucks. I want to go like at some point go like relive those trips where I could actually take in the experience.
Yeah.
So, anyway, we got to get into this Rodney Hood thing.
Yeah.
Since we didn't get your reaction on this, I just want to know: do you agree with my rant that I had after that game? That you shouldn't be playing people with sore Achilles. I don't care if he like clears protocols. If he's having any like reported soreness or issues with that Achilles, you gotta rest him, especially for a game like that. I don't know.
Oh, so he says he's from Vancouver, like you, station
From Vancouver.
Yeah. Anyways,
Gillen Kirchen. That's probably said so wrong.
I was gonna try that one.
Clazer. That's how you say his name.
Anyways, so for those of the know, I just had Achilles surgery a few months ago, and so I've done a lot of like research and stuff on things that were wrong before I had the surgery, and different things I could do to get it better without having the surgery, and all that kind of stuff, like ways that you can weaken it without knowing you're weakening it and stuff like that. And basically I've concluded, and I've kind of like checked with doctors about this and stuff, like if your Achilles is having a problem, it's usually not just because it's sore, right? There's usually something that's causing it to hurt, and it's like a red flag saying like there's something going on. You need to figure out what it is before it gets worse, right? And I mean, it can just kind of you can like get kicked in the back of the foot or something, and it could hurt for a day, and it could be fine. But in most cases, if it starts hurting, it means that something. It could be as simple as tendonitis or something like that, but something is causing it to strain and give you discomfort. And I don't think just being like, and to be clear, I don't know exactly what tests they ran on Rodney beforehand, but it sounds to me like they were just like the next day, hey, how's your Achilles feeling? He's like, oh, totally fine, nothing wrong.
Yeah, obviously the tests weren't good enough if he ended up going out there tearing his Achilles. That's the thing, an Achilles tear is usually like the product of fatigue or some sort of weakness, some sort of problem that was there before. It's not something like an ACL where you like land a certain specific way and apply so much force through it that it just snaps. Like an Achilles, I feel like, I don't know, and I'm not a doctor, so I might sound stupid to people out there who are doctors, but it seems like an Achilles injury, it's never really a product of like some like fluke thing just happening where a perfectly strong Achilles ends up tearing because of too much force. It always seems like it was sore beforehand, weak beforehand, player playing way too many minutes, I mean, like, I don't know, it always seems like there's something leading up to it.
Yeah, so usually, unless you like trip in a hole or like fall from a long distance and then land on your leg and it snaps, like it usually doesn't just go from totally healthy to snapping, right? So like in Hood's instance, it had to have been weakened at some point to snap in that situation, like with non-contact, basically. Same with so it can be both ways, because like with the Wesley Matthews one, he didn't complain about it being sore or have any like symptoms of having it being weakened or anything before it snapped. So you can have it be weakened without knowing that it's weakened, if that makes sense. But
but I mean,
like, but in Hood's situation, they knew it was having issues. I just think they should have gotten to the bottom with it. Yeah.
Think about it this way. How many Achilles injuries have you heard come out of the blue early in the season compared to like late in the season? Wesley Matthews' injury happened in March. DeMarcus Cousins, when he had his Achilles injury, happened in February. Rodney Hood's happened early, but there was reported problems with it before.
Yeah.
How many Achilles injuries do you have like in October, November, even December that come out of the blue? You don't have that. Usually it happens later than that, later on in the season, which shows us, because of fatigue. So I think that kind of helps my point as well. And I mean, dude shouldn't have been out there. We probably weren't going to win that game. I know we shouldn't decide whether to rest players or not based on our opponent. They,
Right.
if they're not ready to go, rest them. If they're ready to go, play them. But obviously, Rodney Hood wasn't ready to go.
I just hope. I mean, obviously we can't change what happened, but hopefully now
Yeah.
with Durant and Hood, there's just some sort of protocol now where if a player has an Achilles injury, you look at it way more seriously than just seeing if it's better in a day or two. Like try to figure out the reason why it's hurting, and until you do, don't clear him to play. If you do conclude that it's just soreness or whatever, and it's not putting him in any danger to play, then you can make that decision. And then if he gets hurt, then that's on you because you cleared him or whatever. But yeah, I just don't think Achilles injuries should be taken lightly at this point. And it kind of bugs me that because like he wasn't even listed on the injury report going into Friday, like after leaving the game 2 days before with an Achilles injury, it just seemed kind of weird. And then you knew as the minute he went down, like I know you knew it too. You were just like, oh, that's his Achilles. And on the ESPN broadcast, they were like, oh, it looks like he's grabbing his ankle. I'm like, nope, he's reaching for his Achilles. Yep.
Well, yeah, I was like, dang, he sprained his ankle. And then I saw the replay and I knew. Because, like, your heel, like, you'll be pushing off and then the heel will drop in a certain way. That, like, now it's like, you can tell when somebody tears their Achilles.
Yeah.
It looked the same exact way with Wes. It looked the same way with Kevin Durant. Like, when I only needed to see one replay. And when I saw that replay from the side, I knew he tore his Achilles. I knew it. Like, it's literally like the one injury, like other than like a broken leg or something, that's like obvious when you see it. It's the one like tendon injury that's obvious when you see it. Like, that he tore his Achilles, and I was not shocked, and I knew it for the whole rest of the game. Like, that dude just tore his Achilles. That sucks, man. I want to respond to Eric Kleiser because he said he'll bring some like elite shooting to my rec league once he moves back to Vancouver. I play at Lakeshore Athletic Club in Vancouver. It is a pricey gym. It is like a $200 initiation if you're by yourself, and then it's $60 a month. So it is a bit pricey. It's better if you can hop on there with a spouse or something, a couple plan, or with a family. It does make it cheaper per person. But they have like video golf simulators or whatever with like a tee box room.
Mm-hmm.
They have tennis courts. It's a nice place, but I only go there for the basketball. Speaking of that, I also wanted to respond to that because it'll segue into this. I don't know what time we play tomorrow because my rec league plays Tuesday, Thursdays. There's a Blazer game tomorrow. If I end up playing at 8:30, then I'll probably be home a little late, so I might have Eric boot up the stream because Eric will have a new laptop. I'll sort that out with you, Eric. I just need to check the time on that. But honestly, like, the game ends at 9:30. My game would end at 9:30, as well as the Blazer game. So I should be good to go for that. I just might miss a portion of the game, but honestly, it's the New York Knicks, so I shouldn't need to watch the whole game. We should beat them by double digits.
Talking like that. Sure.
And if we don't, then it'll be more of the same problems, you know what I mean? And if we lose, then we can rant on stream about how we're screwed. Because if we lose to the Knicks, man, this team is at home. You can't lose to the Knicks at home. But as far as the tanking, that's not a realistic option. How are you going to get Dame to tank? He's not going to be on board with that. He's too good of a player to, like, you know what I mean? Like, you can make moves to try and, like, make the team a little bit worse, but then that's going to be obvious to Dame, and he's probably not going to like it. Just the whole tanking thing opens up too many problems, and I don't think it's all that realistic. There's more reasoning as to why, but me and you have discussed it before, Eric, and I don't want to like get into some long-winded thing about that.
Basically, they can tank if they lose games like they did last night. But yeah, it's not something that you can just decide, oh, you know what, we're just going to tank now. And Dame, you go along with it. That's just not realistic to do. Stotts isn't going to quit. Dame's not going to quit. CJ's not going to quit. They all still believe they can turn this around and make the playoffs and be a contender at some point. And that's not gonna happen. So if you're an advocate of tanking, like pretty much the only way that's going to be possible is if they just continue sucking, and that's just a product of their play. They're just not good enough to win these games. But they're not just going to decide to lose games, at least not at this point in the season.
Yeah, I just don't think it's realistic. People talk about it as if they can just decide to lose games. It's not that simple at all. I don't consider that a possibility. Then Third asked if I wanted to respond to his tweet, and he tweeted at us 3 hours ago. If you don't follow us, our Twitter handles are right there for you guys to see, for you guys to go follow us on Twitter. But he tweeted at us, he said, everyone is talking about tanking or going for a star, but I feel the right answer is turning the expiring deals into players that will maximize the next couple of years. Nurk won't be 100% till next year. And I'm more optimistic on Nurkic than you are, but we're not going to get into that. I just wanted to read that off because it kind of relates into like the whole, okay, we need a star or we need a tank thinking. It's either like go all in or tank. I think that the Blazers are stuck in a position where they need to make a small move on December 15th, December 16th, once more players become available. They need a small forward starter.
Yeah.
Because Kent Bazemore is not starter material. They need a small forward starter, and it doesn't have to be a player even as good as Rodney Hood. You look at guys out there like maybe a Glenn Robinson III. You know what I mean? That's not a sexy name that's going to jump out to people, but he's been playing solid this year. And he's playing for the Warriors. He's a veteran on a minimum deal. Right? Am I right on that? Is he on a minimum deal?
I believe so. And then also, if he signed with the Warriors, I think he pretty much had to because they were pretty much cap stricken this offseason.
And we can bring in a guy on a minimum contract without sending anything out.
Yeah, so I'm assuming today the Blazers applied for a disabled player exception for Rodney Hood. So if you know for sure a player is going to miss the rest of the season, you can apply for that exception. And that gives you basically an extra roster spot up to half of his contract, which is like $2.68 million roughly. So just under $3 million, we can either sign someone or trade for anyone in the league who makes that amount or less that is on the final year of their deal. So there is a lot of like players on the last year of their rookie contract and stuff that would be intriguing. Like if, just as an example, like if Scal was on another team, we could trade for him and like say like a second round pick for him and bring him in and using that exception. And then we'd still have that other available roster spot for when Gasol was waived. So we could still technically just sign two people outright for minimum contracts. There's also some situations on the 15th where so Wilson Chandler is going to be activated when he comes off suspension here. I think it actually is December 15th, same day when players can be traded.
Yeah.
And they'll have 16 players on guaranteed contracts, so they're going to have to cut someone. So you got a couple of guys like a David Nwaba or a Mon Shumpert.
Yeah, that's a guy I'd like. Nwaba is underrated. And Shumpert too. Yeah.
Shumpert, but one of those two guys is probably going to be the one they have to cut unless they do some sort of.
I was thinking Theo Pinson is going to be the guy they cut.
Yeah. Well, so I heard something where they were going to try to cut Pinson and then cut one of their two-way guys and then try to sign him as a two-way player so they didn't lose him or something like that. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do with those contracts. But with that exception, we can also pick guys off of waivers. So if they happen to cut one of those guys, I mean, I could even see them maybe just cutting bait on Chandler, being mad that he got suspended or something.
Yeah, that's possible. But they need the help at power forward. They need all the help they can get at that position.
That's
and
true.
He's like really their best option.
Yeah.
Torian Prince has been playing a lot of power forward, but he's been
Right.
undersized, so I don't see them doing that. But yeah, you definitely can watch that scenario. But like, I know it's not sexy, but I think the Blazers need to make a small move to tread water. I still think they need to try and set themselves up to be competitive. I still think getting something like the 6th seed is possible. I still wouldn't hate getting the 7th or 8th seed. Maybe you hope. I don't know. You don't hope for other teams to have injuries, but maybe one of the LA teams has one of their top 2 players get hurt and not be available for the first round. If that's the case, I think both of those teams are definitely beatable. And if Portland is able to get Nurkic back, upgrade the roster, things would need to line up here, but maybe they'd have a chance at knocking off one of those teams in the first round, or maybe they could go get the 6th seed. I don't think the 6th seed is out of the question. You look at the teams that are like 7th and 8th, it's like OKC. OKC's 7th right now. And they're a couple games ahead of us, I think. And that's the thing, is we need to try and tread water and try and work back towards 500 by the new year. To do that, we need to make a move on December 15th to upgrade our wing situation, because now we have a huge hole. Ken Bazemore is not good enough to fill that Rodney Hood void by himself. And the thing is, when you move Bazemore to the starting lineup, now you have a hole on the bench at small forward. You're playing guys like Mario Hezonja again, who is awful. That layup he had.
He should have been cut immediately after that play.
He should have just walked off the court mid-game and walked into the locker room, taken off his jersey. And I got blasted for saying I didn't want to rely on that guy. Come on, man. I took some heat on Twitter for pointing that out, but I'm going to point it out when ridiculous stuff like that happens, because oh my goodness.
I'm kind of interested why Trent didn't play at all last night.
I don't know, man, but that's Terry Stotts.
If he was just activated, but he still wasn't ready to play because they had to activate a certain amount of people. But yeah, it's I don't know why he wouldn't get a shot in a game like that. And then also, to the people who say you don't want to like block Little from getting minutes and stuff like that, like, he's not getting minutes anyway. Like, I mean, he's had every opportunity to get big minutes. I know a couple games he's been in foul trouble, but like, but I want to see Little play at the 3 some. Like, I wouldn't mind him starting at the 3, but like, Stotts just seems to refuse to play him at any spot other than power forward. So like, it's just frustrating. I don't think bringing in another small forward is going to change his minutes at all.
Exactly. But I mean, like, I think Glenn Robinson III is the most realistic target. You don't have to match salary in a trade if you bring in a guy on a minimum contract. You can just bring in a guy on a minimum contract. We have an open roster spot. We also have a layman traded player exception for $1.7 million, and we'll have that disabled player exception for, I think you said, what, $2.6 million. So, I mean, like, we have the means to bring in guys on small contracts, and I'm just looking at Glenn Robinson's stats right now. I think this is our best target. 3 out of the last 4 years, counting this season, he's shooting 39% from 3 or higher. Starting in 2016, 2017, he shot 39.2%, then 41.2%, and then last season he struggled, only shot 29%. Right, but then this season back up to 39%, career 36.7% three-point shooter. So this is a guy who can knock down threes. He's also has decent efficiency from inside the arc. His field goal percentage this year is 46% right now. He's getting 11.8 points per game on 32 minutes per game. So that sounds like somebody that, he doesn't have quite the same level of efficiency as Rodney Hood does, but that seems like somebody that can kind of replace that role a little bit. He's not known as a great defender, but I've never thought of him as like a bad defender. His defensive box plus minus this year is negative 1.5, but for his career it's around like negative 0.5 to negative 0.7. I feel like we can't be too picky. I feel like he might be a little bit better than defender than Rodney Hood, and that's a guy on a team that's losing games right now. Olshey is friends with Bob Myers. That connection might help as well. I've been high on Glenn Robinson in the past. I think that would be a guy to go out and get.
Yeah, you might think this is a little crazy, but I think a guy we both like, Mikal Bridges, could be available.
That's a guy I go after too. He's
Yeah.
not being played much in Phoenix. They have a lot of
His
wings
his
ahead of him.
his minutes are down 9 minutes a game this year, and his 3-point shooting hasn't been great. It's been good the last couple games. But yeah, it's he's someone who, if they're at all down on him, I would go get him immediately.
Yeah, yeah, he'd be more of a like a, you know,
Like an actual trade,
upside.
actual trade, yeah.
Yeah, he'd be more of an upside guy. Because right now he's not really doing much. He's shooting under 30% from three, but like in terms of his upside, I think he has higher upside than a guy like Glenn Robinson if he ends up figuring it out. So that could be another target. I was super high on Bridges coming out of the draft. I don't know how much money he's making. I wish Basketball Reference would show how much money he's making because that's what I'm on right now.
Who are you looking at for?
Mikal Bridges.
Oh,
I'll look it
it's
up right now.
4.1 million, I think.
Yeah, so we'd have to trade out Tolliver and Hazonia.
Yeah.
And that might be good enough to match salary. I think it would. He's making 3.5. Oh no, that's average. Yeah, so like 4.1 million. I don't know. So that's a guy where it'd have to be an actual trade. Send out like Tolliver and Hazonia, and
Yeah.
they'd probably want like at least 2 second-round picks. That would be a harder guy to get. I think Glenn Robinson is the most realistic scenario.
What's the most you'd give up in that? If it was Hazonia and Tolliver, what's the biggest pick you'd give up? Like a top 20 protected first?
I wouldn't give up a first unless we're getting back their second.
Mm.
And it'd have to be a protected first, like top 20 protected.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Or top 18 protected, along with getting that second round pick. I don't know. I don't feel comfortable about giving up a first round pick for Mikal Bridges.
That's crazy though.
Yeah, because I'm super high on him, but also you got to think about opportunity cost. You might be costing yourself an opportunity at a big upgrade by not having that first round pick to trade. Maybe you can include Bridges in the deal, but we don't know if we're trying to make a move for like a legit starter. We don't know how the other team would value Mikal Bridges.
Well, plus
other teams might value
you wouldn't be able to combine his salary for the rest of the year at this point.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But we have the means to match salary with our big expiring contracts, like a Whiteside and a Bazemore. We could throw him in on top of that and just like not count his salary and include him in the trade, but. That's the thing with first round picks is you're giving teams a choice of who they want in terms of a prospect. They might not want Mikal Bridges like they would want our first round pick. So he might not have the same level of value as that first round pick, and that might be a deal breaker in a trade for like a legit starter. So that's the thing you have to remember.
Yeah.
That's why I'm kind of on trading a first-round pick for Mikal Bridges. I'd rather just get like a stopgap small forward, get a Glenn Robinson III. He could probably be had for a second-round pick. Just a second-round pick straight up for Glenn Robinson III. I think that'd be a good option. Then maybe you turn Bazemore into a Otto Porter Jr. type, who ends up being our starting small forward, and then you bring Glenn Robinson off the bench, who I think is definitely a better player than Bazemore. And I think that's the way to go. Honestly, I haven't looked enough into other possible targets, but I think the Blazers have to make a move for a player like a Glenn Robinson III, a guy who can hit threes and isn't a horrible defender and can just be a stopgap guy. It's hard to find those guys on minimum contracts, so I don't know how many options are out there. Also, contending teams probably aren't going to want to trade those players, so that's why Glenn Robinson is a good option too, because Golden State isn't doing anything. They signed him thinking, okay, we might be able to make a playoff run once we get Clay back, in March or April or whenever, and they thought Steph Curry was going to be healthy all year with D'Angelo Russell and Draymond Green. They thought they were going to be a playoff team. That's why they signed Glenn Robinson III. They're not going to be a playoff team, so I don't know what other options are out there. Bruno Caboclo, he's not good enough. He's an intriguing player, but he's not good enough. I don't think he's any better than Bazemore.
It's probably someone we could get though.
Yeah, it's somebody we could definitely get, but he's just because he's not that good.
Yeah.
Royce O'Neal wouldn't be available. That's an example of a player on a contending team. Like, he's a nice target. He'd be a good player. He'd fit what we need. A guy who can hit threes and pass a little bit and can defend. That would fit well in the starting lineup, but Utah isn't going to trade a starter for a second-round pick.
I see people mentioning Torrey Craig earlier too, and that's the same type of situation.
Yeah.
Even if he is falling out of the rotation, they're contending for a championship. I doubt they trade guys like that for our, especially to a team like us that would help us get back in the mix.
Yep. That's why Glenn Robinson is such a ideal, realistic target. Like I said too, is Bob Myers and Neil Olshey are friends. They're close. So it just makes sense from a lot of different perspectives. I don't know if there's a target out there that's like as good as Glenn Robinson that would make sense, make as much sense as him. I'm interested to see what you guys got. As far as like trade talk and stuff, Eric should be getting his laptop tonight. He's getting a new laptop, which will allow him to like edit and do stuff like that. Because his laptop he has now isn't quite up to snuff, so he's upgrading for you guys. So appreciate you doing that, man. Because now he's gonna be able to have some fun. He's gonna be able to make that weekly trade talk video. I don't know if you want to do it on Monday. I don't know. Like you could do it on Monday, or you could do a trade talk Tuesday, or you could do it on Monday, and make it like Monday. We could make Monday a community thing. I'll get my mailbacks back to Monday, and you could do the trade talk on Monday too. So that would just be us doing videos for the community, like with their comments on Monday. That could be like community day or something. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, but then that ruins the Trade Talk Tuesday name.
I know. So we could do it Tuesday too. I was just spitballing. It's completely up to you. But we'll work on that. I know Eric, you're excited to do that.
Yeah. Real quick, I know this is changing the subject, but Austin Wack says we were bad, but only because injuries, to be honest. So
yeah,
this is what's frustrating me. Okay, last night we played OKC, right? Mm-hmm. And so the talk we've been talking about this a lot. How prior to the wait, hold on a sec. I think my laptop might be here. Hold on. I'll be right back. Hold up. All right, got it.
Was that your laptop?
Yep.
Bro, let's see it. Where'd you put it?
It's right here.
Let's see what you got. You want to open it up?
Sure.
I'm gonna give you
They said you muted the wrong person.
Oh, I did mute the wrong person, dude. So
That's hilarious.
Oh, dang, man. Okay, why would I have your audio up top? Usually your audio's on bottom. Why would I have your audio up top in my list here? Okay, as I was saying, because I accidentally muted myself instead of him.
Again.
His laptop took a vacation to Illinois. It got shipped to Portland.
Yep.
Just need to be driven to his place.
No,
But
it was
then somehow.
it was out for delivery on Tuesday in near
To
my
your
house.
place.
Yeah, at least that's what it said. Didn't show up.
Somehow it ended up in Illinois. It took a vacation to Illinois.
Yeah.
And it finally came back, and now it's finally here. So it's been a long time coming. Lots of miles traveled there.
Yeah.
I just want to see how nice this thing is.
Got Black
Watch
Friday
don't-
special.
Yeah, don't drop it. That'd be tragic.
I need scissors.
That'd be the most tragic thing. Yeah, Eric got a new toy. So I don't know if I was muted when I said this, but if I'm like have a rec league game and it's like right after a Blazer game or like kind of interferes with the end of a Blazer game, he'll actually be able to start up a stream, and then I'd hop on a call with him. We'd be able to get that post game live stream up right away, since we like going live right away. So unboxing on stream with the happy crying face. Yeah, let's show it off for us. Like a kid on Christmas. That's sleek. Is that a what brand is that?
An Asus Vivo book.
Asus. Yeah, I'll have to set you up with I mean, you know how to download OBS, all that. We'll get that video editor, and I'll help them make that Trade Talk video. I'll work with you on that, and that'll be fun. Yeah, I was talking about Eric was away. I meant to mute Eric. I muted myself instead, which was silly. Because I have like the order I have our mic inputs, our audio inputs is flipped, and I didn't realize it, so I accidentally muted myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
so back to
right.
And now a word from our sponsor SeatGeek, Tommy Thompson. Okay, now I have to plug it though.
Yeah.
Promo code Blazers Uprise save you $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. So if you want to get tickets to a Blazer game, a concert, a play, something like that, then use the promo code Blazers Uprise to save $20. My mic is falling; it doesn't like me advertising things here. Anyway,
so we talked all season about games where we struggle, where we go into hero ball mode, ISO oriented offense, lack of off the ball movement, lack of passing, lack of making the extra pass. Then we saw a few games when Melo came aboard where we seemed to, like, everyone started making the extra pass, at least for periods of the game. And the offense looked really sharp at times. And we've had some really good quarters, including a really good game against the same Thunder about a week ago, where we were moving the ball like crazy, especially in the first half. I think we scored 42 points in a quarter. And then, so we've talked about this where when we play good teams or we get down in games, we go away from that and we just start going one-on-one, and like people just take turns trying to take over, right? And people are saying they still can't hear you.
I'm not muted.
Anyways, so against the Clippers last week, people were saying, oh, well, that's the problem. You can't have good ball movement against a good team because they're just too good defensively. They'll stop that or whatever. But then, so our point is, like, that's when you want to have better ball movement, more crisp ball movement, because that's the only way you can beat guys like that, because going one-on-one against their best players is not ideal. So it just makes me mad when there's a game like last week against the Thunder where we have great ball movement and we blow them out of the gym. And then last night we play completely selfish basketball for almost the whole time, and we lose a game at home that we should win, and people are talking about the injuries. Like, yes, I understand not having Hood sucks and not having Collins sucks, but like they could have won that game easily, and they just everyone tried to take it upon themselves to do more, and that's not what got them back to winning in the first place.
I mean, I look at it this way. Is Rodney Hood really a 30-point difference in terms of our outcome? We won by 20 against that very same team when we had Rodney Hood, and then we lose to that very same team at home again, because we played them at home the first time. Then we lose Rodney Hood, and we lose by 10 to that team. So instead of winning by 20 with Rodney Hood, we lose by 10 without him. And I see a bunch of fans, it's the fans that make excuses for the coaching, that type of thing, saying, "Oh, well, we lost Rodney Hood. That's why we lost the game. We just have so many injuries. We lost Rodney Hood." But he's not a 30-point difference. He's not a 30-point difference. So the fact that some people won't listen if you point out other issues and will just say, "Oh, well, we lost Rodney Hood. That's why we lost this game when we won it before," is ridiculous, because he's not going to make a 30-point difference. I know he's playing great this year, but he didn't shoot enough to even come close to making a 30-point difference. So that shows you the difference in the style of play. And if people honestly watch both games and they objectively did I say that right? Objectively observe both of those games. If you objectively observe, that's a tongue twister. If you watch that game with honest eyes, basically, if you watch both those games, you can tell the difference in the style of play. There is a big difference in the style of play from that first Thunder game to that second Thunder game, and those two games shows us exactly what we're talking about. Yes, we've had injuries. Yes, we've had issues. But if we played a good style of basketball, we could still be a solid team. And that's why I'm so hard on the coaching, regardless of the injuries that happen.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to use Rodney Hood as an excuse for what happened to OKC. We still should have beat that team. We beat them by 20 with Rodney Hood simply because we played a good style of basketball, moved the ball, everybody touched the ball. We played hard on defense. The problems that we're talking about, we didn't have those problems the first game. That's why we won. Those problems showed up last night, and we lost that game because of it. That's why I don't use injuries as an excuse.
We can beat a team like OKC if Dame or Melo shoot better last night. I mean, we win that game easily. So if they get hot, even playing crappy basketball, we're talented enough to win the games. And that's what's frustrating to me when people say it's the injuries. It's that we still have 3 elite scoring ISO players on our team, and they've shown that if they use that to their advantage to set up teammates, that it's a really nice style of basketball. I know it was against some crappy teams, but they were playing really. It's what we want to see. When the ball moves around, when you get a shot, you kick out to an open shooter and he has a shot, but he passes to an even open shooter. That's just really nice basketball to watch. And then to watch what happened last night where people just kept taking turns shooting and there was very little ball movement. And then the one time Melo does pass, Hazonia does that crap where he tries to go up under the
Oh my goodness, man. Dude got so scared about dude saw a ghost or something because he thought he was going to get blocked by someone that wasn't even close to being there. It's you're 6'9", just go up and quick dunk it. Your athletic 6'9", jam the ball. That was comical. That play was basically our season in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Oh, we have a good opportunity to dunk. No, we tried some fucking finesse stuff. I apologize for the language, but I think that play is worthy of cursing, honestly. I know most of you guys probably don't care. Just Jason Jensen said he liked how I didn't cuss, but I'm not sure if he's in here. And it's YouTube, so it's not live TV. If that was live TV, I'd be in trouble right now. That's why I like doing YouTube instead. But yeah, that play was comical, man. That play was bad.
And then so Den Third says you can always hear Stotts tell him to run stuff, and that's another problem I have with the coaching is how if you're yelling that the whole game and they never run, we never get transition points. Isn't that a reflection of you're not doing a well enough job of coaching that?
Yeah.
And that's the frustrating part. Because I see that all the time. Well, it's Stotts is trying to get them to run. They just don't. then coach them better, hold them more accountable for not doing what you're telling them to do, right?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I feel like if they worked on running enough in practice, it would translate over to the game. They'd be more comfortable with doing it. They just don't seem like super comfortable pushing the pace, and that's just a habitual thing. And yeah, he can tell them to run, but their habits tell them to slow it down. And they have a lot of bad habits right now. I think that is one of them. They don't feel comfortable running.
And I don't think, because people are asking if they're giving up on the system or Stotts. I don't think that's the case. I think that is the system is the problem. Like, I mean, Stotts, you can hear it in some of the post-game press conferences and stuff. He's like, well, I mean, CJ got to his spots and Melo got to his spots and the shots didn't go in, like he's like some of the people that
I'm so tired of literally after every game, oh, shots just didn't go in. Next game, oh, shots just didn't go in. Next game, oh, well, we just missed shots. Next game, well, guys just didn't shoot as well as they can. Like, that happens so often. It's like, really, that's just what we're going to say after every game. Maybe it's a problem with the shots we're getting then if guys are consistently not making shots. It's silly, man.
And this year they do have some injury excuses, so it's a little easier for them to just pass it off on that. Yeah, I'm starting to turn a little bit. Tommy Thompson said how much of this year is on Olshey. It's hard for me because like Whiteside's doing a great job, I think. So it's hard to say that was a bad trade, right?
Yeah.
And that still could be turned into something else as well. So until that pans out, it's hard to say for sure either way, even if you don't like what Whiteside's bringing to the team.
Bringing Rodney Hood back was the right decision, which isn't going to pay off from here on out, but that was the right move.
I think making a situation where Collins was the starting power forward was the right move. You can question the Tolliver, Hazonia signings, the Gasol signings.
I questioned the Tolliver and Hazonia thing at the time.
Yeah.
I honestly feel like my evaluation of this past offseason was 100% spot on. And I've been an Olshey hater, but I haven't hated on him recently. I thought he actually had a decent offseason. My major problem was can't rely on a guy like Hazonia. Dude is so unproven. Dude has done nothing in his career. He's not just going to come into Portland and because, oh, it's a better situation than New York. He's not just going to morph into a different player than he was. He is who he is. That's the same way with Stauskas. That's the same way with Hazonia. He's actually maybe having his worst season of his career, which is funny. People hyped him up, and it's like at the time, we can't rely on a guy like this to play minutes. And even at the time, it looked like, okay, he's gonna play some minutes. But I remember you saying, oh, he's a guy who's on a minimum contract and probably won't have a big role if he does have one, so we're not going to have to rely on him, so it's not a big deal. And for me, it was like, we're one injury away from having to play him,
right.
We didn't have Melo at the time. We're one injury away from having to play him, like, a ton of minutes, and he's not a good option. Tolliver's not a good option. Tolliver's 34. He was already showing signs of decline, and he wasn't good in the first place. Those guys aren't good options. If we have, like, an injury to Collins, then we're screwed. And we have Collins get injured, and then we're absolutely screwed. And that's where he went wrong. Giving up a guy like Jake Layman. Imagine, dude, we need Jake Layman right now.
Yeah.
Jake Layman would that guy knows how to play off guys. That guy knows how to play in our system. That guy just needed to get a consistent role, get more confidence. Jake Layman would be playing 30 minutes per game right now. But we gave him up for free and signed Mario Hazonia, who is doing what he did last night with that reverse, finesse BS lay-in. That was my big problem with the offseason. Now it looks like it's even more of a problem than it was at the time.
And that's where, if you want to say the injury excuse, that's where it comes into play. It's the fact that guys like Hazonia and Tolliver are having to play big minutes in certain situations. I'm still getting over this cold. But yeah, I think this is this. I'm giving Olshey a pass until Sunday, right? Because you can make the excuse that maybe he has some stuff lined up, but there's not a lot of movement right now until teams see what else is out there, But after Sunday, he has got to do something to compensate for the injuries and for putting us in a position where we're having to play guys like Tolliver and Hazonia. And so I'm trying to be fair to him because it's kind of the injuries are out of control and there is a situation where he might not be able to do much about it because other teams might not be willing to trade yet. But
he screwed up by not giving us enough insurance.
Yes, he has a chance to fix it still before it's too late. And we can't wait till the trade deadline to make a move if we want to still make the playoffs this year. So he's got to do something relatively soon. So I'll wait to judge to see what he turns those guys into. If he can pull a miracle like the Baldwin and Stauskas for Hood type trade of last year, a similar type trade this year, that would save our season, I think, especially if it was for a small forward like we were talking about that could just cover Hood's absence now. And then
I just feel like Glenn Robinson III is going to be the answer there, but yeah. Because Taeyeon Lee asked, so what do you guys think we should do? Glenn Robinson III, that's your answer. So anyway, go on.
But yeah, both of us wanted to keep Lehman. That was. But I mean, who knows if he would even be playing much right now?
I think he would.
Yeah.
Look at the bar that Hazonia has set.
Has to, yeah.
Look at the bar that Hazonia has set, man. Jake could easily replace that, and he's a guy who moves. You know what I mean? Like the team moved like off the ball a lot better with Jake Lehman in the game. That's what I noticed. Nurk helped that because Nurk could find him, but Jake cut, and it was a bit contagious. Hazonia doesn't move off the ball at all. He sits in the corner, dribbles the ball up top. Like Hazonia doesn't provide literally anything positive. He does nothing positive. He provides absolutely nothing. Jake Lehman can hit a 3-point shot. He cuts. He can play with some energy. He can get an offensive putback. He's a much better option. The fact that we let him go was a big mistake. Dude should have been our backup power forward to start the season instead of Hazonia. And right now, Lehman would probably be our starting small forward. Lehman with Melo is actually, I think, a decent compliment on the offensive end too. Yeah. Maybe not defensively, but like those guys would be interesting to watch play together. It just pisses me off. Like that's where Olshey messed up. Because the other moves I thought were good. I still think they were good, even though the results haven't been good. Whiteside, Hood, starting Collins, bringing Anthony into the rotation. We didn't really have a better option at backup guard since we had to let Seth Curry walk. I thought all those moves were good.
Mm-hmm.
The backup power forward position, Tolliver, Hazonia, there were better options out there that we could have signed. We didn't.
Well, that's the frustrating part about still having the open roster spot too, because you could have signed a guy like Fareed before he, and now he's a free agent again because he just got waived by his team in China. Yeah, just it seemed like. I mean, I don't know. I'm just guessing, but it almost seems like they don't want to add tax to the roster right now. Because why else would you keep that roster spot open if you're not going to try to compensate for it when you have injuries, So, So it'll be interesting to see if they sign a small forward or if they try to trade for one or some sort of wing player. I hope it's not a guy like Corey Brewer, but there are guys like that out there.
God, that's gross. I could imagine our starting lineup. Yeah. Imagine at the start of the season if you said, okay, end of December, your starting lineup's going to include Corey Brewer and Carmelo Anthony.
That's hilarious.
Like, oh no, man. Carmelo's been okay. His efficiency has dipped, but the thing. Let me just address this really quick. I feel like the thing with Carmelo's efficiency lately is he hasn't been getting good shots because the the offense has been all isolation, so he's been trying to work out of that and been
Right.
trying to ISO out of that. I feel like his efficiency is a product of the style of basketball that the entire offense is playing right now. When the ball's moved, Carmelo has put up very efficient games. When the ball hasn't moved, Carmelo's missed a lot of tough contested shots. So people are talking about, oh, look, he hasn't improved. He's only shooting 40%, and he shot 40% in Houston. I think it's not. Part of it, you can blame him for not making shots. You can blame him for taking tough shots. But I think a big part of it is the style of basketball that the offense is playing. So I'm not going to put too much stock into his efficiency in terms of like how helpful he can be to the team. I just think the team as a whole needs to play a better brand of basketball, which starts with coaching. So I don't know if it's going to happen. But
Do you think if the Hood injury happened before they guaranteed his contract, that they would have still guaranteed it?
I think so. Because he's their 15th player, right?
No,
No,
14.
they cut. Yeah, I mean they had to. Didn't they have to guarantee his contract anyway? You have to have 14 players on a roster, and it doesn't really like hurt.
No, you
hurt
had
your flexibility. I think they would have.
they had basically they could have waited till January 7th to guarantee it or not.
I think they would have, regardless. Even if he ends up out of the rotation anyway, he's not a guy who's horrible to have. I don't think he'll cause problems if he ends up out of the rotation. But like,
Yeah, I
don't know.
I get that.
He's our best option at power forward right now.
Yeah. And Dunther is saying maybe they're keeping the roster spot open to trade, one player for two, which is likely, yes. But I just think when you have catastrophic injuries, I mean, basically have three players out for a huge chunk of the season that I don't know if you can necessarily wait until a trade becomes available at that point, and then you just have to worry about, maybe you throw in a Whiteside and a Tolliver for those two players, and it shouldn't make the money that much different, instead of. But yeah,
I mean, I still have hope that this team can put together a good roster. I mean, like other than going out and getting Blake Griffin, my hope would be, in terms of just roster moves for the rest of the season, in terms of lining some things up, going out and getting Glenn Robinson III to be our starting small forward. Then Whiteside for Gorgie Jang and Robert Covington. Okay, so we get a backup center. That's once Nurkic comes back, because Gorgie Jang would be a solid option off the bench behind Nurkic, wouldn't cause problems. He's on a 2-year contract making $60 million a year, so he is overpaid. He is a bad contract, but that would help you get Covington without having to give up assets.
I still think we'd have to give up a first in that scenario, but
maybe. But if Minnesota is struggling and really wants to open up cap space, maybe you get it done with a couple second-round picks. And then you go out and trade like Bazemore and Scow and maybe Gary Trent Jr. for Otto Porter Jr. and maybe a minimum contract or two. Obviously with like the money, and maybe Joey Allen doesn't want to pay tax. Yeah, you can get into that. But other than that, I mean, like that's kind of like the three moves that I'd hope for is, maybe we don't get Otto Porter Jr. I still think that Gorgie Jang and Robert Covington is a good move because we need help defensively. We need a small forward now. We'd keep a center in that scenario. We'd trade 1 for 2, like Chat just referenced, making a 1 for 2 trade. We'd basically replace Whiteside with Jang, and then we'd add a small forward that would help our team. And right now, we need a small forward.
And Covington would fit in well. You mentioned Layman fitting well with Melo. I think Covington would be a really good fit in our front court.
Well, yeah, and then if you were able to like trade Bazemore for Otto Porter Jr. in a way, then you'd have Covington and Porter Jr. as our starting small forward and power forward, which two defensive guys that are versatile defenders and can shoot threes well. And then you'd have Glenn Robinson off the bench. If you make that trade, he'd be off the bench. You'd have Melo off the bench, and you'd have Simons off the bench, and you'd have Jang off the bench. That would be an okay bench. Our starting lineup would be a lot better. And hopefully you could make those deals without giving up a first-round pick. Otto Porter Jr. probably opts into his contract, so then you, going into next season, you'd have Otto Porter Jr. on an expiring contract, $27 million. You'd have Gorgie Jang on an expiring contract, $60 million. It'd be a lot like our situation this year, with our expiring contracts of Whiteside and Bazemore, $27 million and $19 million, it'd just be Porter Jr. and Jang next year. Hopefully we'd have all our picks, or if we traded a 2020 first-round pick, then we'd still have all our future picks after this offseason. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that would be a solid team. You get Nurkic back, Collins back, you'd have Porter, you'd have Covington, you'd have Jang, you'd have, you'd have a lot of solid pieces there, and you still have the means to trade expirings and young assets and picks for an upgrade at the trade deadline next year. And I think like that team would be really, really solid. You get, Hood back as well. Maybe Glenn Robinson doesn't come back, but he'd just be a stopgap. Like, that's the thing. I'm hoping for something like that. I still think that Olshey has a bunch of different avenues he can take. I might have to make that trade scenario into a 2K video, though. That sequence of moves, I might just have to do that. I might have to record that tonight. But that just a long-winded way of pointing out the type of moves that Olshey can make. He has moves at his disposal.
Mm-hmm.
My opinion of Olshey is going to be determined by what he does with this situation that he has right now.
Yep. That's what I'm saying. Like he can still fix anything he messed up this offseason. The contracts he brought in with Whiteside and Bazemore were brought in knowing that if they didn't work out, he could still flip them for something else.
Yeah, exactly. Tommy Thompson says we need a 2K video, Tori. Yeah, I might have to do that 2K video. Might have to do that 2K video for sure. Yeah, that's the thing is if he made a sequence of moves like that, I'd be in favor of Olshey. That would be a phenomenal sequence of moves. If he doesn't do anything, then it's gonna be a problem. Like, that's the thing. Those sequence of moves will set us up better for the future and will make us better now. I'm in favor of trading for multi-year contracts like that. For poor contracts with 2 years left on them, I think is a good move at this point because if you're able to get a guy like a Gorgie Jang who Minnesota doesn't want on their cap going into next offseason, then that can help you value-wise to bring back a guy like Robert Covington without giving up a first. Or maybe you just trade straight up for Jang, maybe a Bazemore for Jang, and then you trade Whiteside for another player somewhere else and replace Whiteside with Jang, basically. And maybe you get a couple second-round picks from Minnesota for taking on Jang's contract. Or maybe you get, if they're competitive enough, maybe you get their first-round pick for taking on Jang. I don't know. I'm just in favor of that because those contracts turn into expiring contracts next season, which can be helpful via trade, and we add assets. We multiply assets.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that might be the way to go instead of trading away players for bad players to tank. I think that might be the way to go. Like, try and stay competitive, but also multiply our assets and set us up with contracts that we can trade next season. Because if Whiteside and Bazemore expire and they walk, we don't have contracts to trade next season. We're not going to want to trade Nurkic, McCollum, Lillard. Other than that, we'd have maybe Rodney Hood for $6 million a year. That would be like our next biggest contract, which doesn't really sound like a bad thing, but in terms of matching salary, trading for a good starter, we're not going to be able to match salary. So that's another reason why I'd be in favor of trading for a guy like Gorgie Jang who has $62 million for the next 2 years instead of just this season.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Hopefully I explained that well.
Hopefully you get a player so you don't have to worry about trading them again next year. Hopefully you get the players like the Covington and Otto Porter would obviously solidify our lineup to where we wouldn't have to worry about making trades again next year probably, except for like small minor ones. But yeah, I completely agree that assuming Hood opts into his contract now, which is about $6 million, best case scenario, it'd probably get to about $12 million in cap space this offseason. So you're risking.
And I'm assuming Hazonia is going to opt in because I don't think he's worth more than the minimum contract, and he likes Nurkic. I think he likes being here, so that's $11 million. You know what I mean? Like, we don't have the cap space.
So yeah, you're talking about basically a mid-level exception either way. You could either get to the cap and still have your mid-level exception so you can sign a player for about $10 million anyway, or you can not sign those guys, let them walk. I guess the only thing you could think about is if you wanted to keep Bazemore and Whiteside for cheaper next year, that option would be out the deal if you traded them. but I don't
I just
know.
don't think that makes sense because
Yeah.
Bazemore's
Ba-
kind of trash, and Whiteside, I don't think will want to be a backup.
yeah, Bazemore has not been good enough to warrant that decision costing us a trade.
Mm-hmm.
And Whiteside, I'd probably be okay with doing, but I don't see him being completely happy playing less than 24 minutes a game behind
Yeah.
Nurk. And I don't know if I want Nurk to only play that amount either. It would be a pretty good tandem to have at center, but neither of those guys can play any other positions. So I kind of like having a guy like Collins that can play either position better as the backup, and then having a legit power forward. But yeah,
Yeah. I I feel like there's a way graphically where, like, if you did a trade video and you were discussing like the types of moves we could make that could set us up better for next year. What I just tried to explain with
right.
taking on 2-year contracts compared to one. I feel like graphically there would be a way to like show that on a screen that would make it make more sense. Because I'm trying to explain it as best I can, but I don't know if it makes complete sense to all you guys. We're trying to discuss basically a complex situation roster wise, and roster construction is usually complex, but in terms of like what we're trying to accomplish with this roster in the next couple years, like it's not an easy situation to explain necessarily what we should do. So hopefully I explained everything well. I'll probably make a 2K video because that is a way that I could kind of show some of the strategy that I think Neil Olshey should have, and I can show it, through 2K, and you guys can understand what I'm talking about. I'm gonna drop one of those this week. I'm gonna do it. I know I tease them a lot, but I'm gonna do that series of 3 trades that I talked about, and I'll show you guys kind of some of the strategy that Olshey should have in terms of our situation. And Eric will figure out that trade talk video, and we'll get you guys going with the content mailbag, hopefully coming tomorrow as well. So we'll ramp some things up video wise, talking about trades and that type of stuff, since I know that is pretty much what's most interesting right now, because the team right now, it's tough, man.
For sure.
So
Cody Franklin's asking, did Bazemore and Mario lose value with us? Well, Bazemore was traded for Evan Turner in the offseason, and Mario signed a minimum contract. So, yeah, I don't think those guys can lose value, really. Their value is more in their contracts themselves. So, so I don't think they lost value. They didn't gain value either. But yeah.
Yeah.
I think the only thing you can say now is, there's those reports from Quick saying that they weren't going to trade Whiteside and Bazemore this year. Well, now I think that's should be off the table, right?
Yeah, they were talking about the organization was viewing themselves as a championship contender with those guys, and no, they're definitely nowhere close to being a championship contender right now. So I don't think that same level of thinking applies. But yeah, when you're talking about incoming trades, there's 3 factors to consider: how good the player is right now, how good they could end up being, and what their contract is like. And those 3 things, certain teams will value. The 4th thing to value would also be like their position, fit with the team, that type of stuff. And teams value those things differently depending on the situation they're in, depending on what their needs are. Guys like Whiteside, teams don't really need a starting center. And teams don't really... I don't see teams trading contracts to get a starting center making that much money. You know what I mean? So Whiteside's value to other teams comes in his contract, which is expiring. Not in him being a good player right now.
Right.
Because teams don't really need him. Teams don't. You look at a team like Washington. They needed a center for a while. And if they were like trying to be competitive, maybe that'd be a team that could trade like a Jan Mahimi and a CJ Miles for him. That's 2 expiring contracts. But Thomas Bryant has become probably just as good as Hassan Whiteside, and he's making like $2 million right now. So like you look at teams like that, they're not going to value Hassan Whiteside. He has value in his expiring contract. For a team like Detroit, if they wanted to blow things up and trade Blake Griffin and not have any long-term salary coming back, that's an expiring contract. That's where Hassan Whiteside's value lies. Same for Bazemore. His value lies on him being an expiring contract, not in him being a player that could help at all, because he's not good enough for teams to value him as a player. They're only going to value him as a contract to help them clear up future salary and get like assets attached to his contract. Like in Orlando, say they didn't want Evan Fournier has 2 years left on his contract for Orlando.
If he opts in.
Yeah, if he opts in. Say Orlando didn't want to commit that $17 million to him next year, trading him for Bazemore and a pick would get them a pick and get them off of Fournier's contract. Bazemore would end up expiring, and they'd clear up that salary and get an asset. They wouldn't trade for Bazemore because of the player that Kent Bazemore is. That's probably a little bit more long-winded than it needed to be, but that's how I view trades. Always got to consider those 4 things.
Or you got to find a dumb team that you have no idea what they're doing, like the Knicks, and just hope that they're infatuated with a guy like Whiteside and be like, oh, wow, we could really use a center like that.
Yeah. See, even a team like that, though, they got Mitchell Robinson.
No, I know. But
that's the thing, is there's a lot of good centers. Yeah, for sure. But that's the thing, though, is there's a lot of good centers. That position was rough a few years ago. Now it's not. There's a lot of good centers, so I don't see any team out there that will value Hassan Whiteside, the player. There are teams that will value him as the contract. A team like Minnesota wanted to get off Gorgie Chang's contract would value Hassan Whiteside as an expiring contract to get him off of Chang's contract to try and clear up cap space for next offseason, which they're apparently trying to do. That's really where his value lies. So those 4 things, always try and analyze trades that way. Fit, how good they are now, how good they are in the future, and their contract.
What sucks is one team that could probably use a guy like Whiteside is Boston, but they don't have like contracts to send back. Yeah, unless you're talking like Gordon Hayward, but that's not going to be.
Yeah. They're not going to trade Gordon. Yeah, see, that's the one team that I was like, man, he'd make a lot of sense for them. They need kind of a rim protector with that lineup. Yeah, and they have a lot of spacing. He'd make a lot of sense. But they're literally the only 2 players they could base a deal for Whiteside around would be like Marcus Smart with a bunch of smaller contracts attached, but that just gets way too messy.
Yeah,
and they're probably not going to want to trade like 6 guys for like Whiteside and then like minimum contracts like Trent, Tolliver, Hazonia. It'd have to be too big of a package. It just doesn't make sense. And I don't think they'd trade Marcus Smart straight up for Whiteside if they could, because Marcus Smart is kind of the heart and soul of their team. Or the other guy's Gordon Hayward, and they're not going to trade him for Whiteside. So that's the thing. That team doesn't have the means to go out and get an Hassan Whiteside. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I've messed around on 2K in my free time to try and like figure out certain trade scenarios. There's really no team out there that I can find that has the means to trade for Whiteside that would make sense for them to add him if they're trying to upgrade their center spot. The teams that don't have good centers, that are trying to win, don't really have the means to trade for Whiteside. A team like Boston, who doesn't have any contracts that they'd be willing to trade for Hassan Whiteside.
Right.
The teams that do have expiring contracts that are big enough to trade for Hassan Whiteside already have a good starting center that they wouldn't want to bring Whiteside in. So that's the thing. Whiteside and Bazemore have no value in terms of them as a player. It's only in their contract.
I agree, yeah.
Yeah. Does the Portland NBA organization know about this channel? Probably not. It would be interesting to hear what they have to think about our criticisms of the coach. And I don't know. If they heard us talk about CVA and trade possibilities and other players, I think they would realize that we know what we're talking about. But they probably wouldn't like how critical we are of Terry Stotts. That probably would turn them off to this channel. But I'm gonna apply for press credentials next year. We'll see how that goes, because then they'll know about our channel. Unless they completely ignore our request for press credentials. We'll see how that goes. But anyway, we're going to wrap up this podcast. Went a little bit long today. I got food waiting for me. I'm going to go eat. And then I'll get you guys out some content tomorrow. We'll have the post-game stream tomorrow as well. I'll do that post-game stream since it'll be live around like 9:30, and I should be good to go by then. Other than that, we've basically covered everything we need to cover, unless you got anything for me, Eric.
No, that's it for tonight.
Alrighty. So we'll catch you guys tomorrow with that post-game stream. 2K video will come up sometime this week. Those take a lot of time to edit, but I'll record that tonight. Other than that, mailbag coming soon, trade talk video coming soon. And
thanks for listening, everyone.
For the next week. Yep. So anyway, shout out to those of you who have been in this chat. Shout out to those of you for watching this video. Thank you guys for your support. And as always, we'll catch you next time. Peace out.